Oh, we're doing it. What's up? What is up, everybody? Welcome to Status Coup. The date is July 9th, 2024. I am Ron Placone, your host, filling in for Jordan Cheriton. Jordan's got some matters he needs to attend to. So you got me today. What's up, everybody? What's up, Travers? What's up, Amra? What's up, Teresa? What's up, Ariana? What's up, new member Fiona? Good to see you. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's Fiona, right? Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Shout out to new member Fiona and everyone hanging out. I'm Ron, filling in for Jordan. I got this little chunk of hair that's like wanting to rebel from the headphones. It's like, let me go ahead and be all goofy because of the headphones. And I'm like, all right, thanks for that goofy hair. But yeah, what are you gonna do? Good to see everybody, by the way. Good to see you. Let's go. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about today. So first of all, AOC had some things to say about Joe Biden as a nominee, but we also got some stuff going on in real time. Apparently, there is a closed door Senate meeting happening pretty much right now. The last update was about an hour ago. So we're gonna trace that a little bit and see if there's anything to update. Also, a doctor had some things to say about Joe Biden's health. Also, Project 2025. Everyone's talking about Project 2025. It's a very disturbing thing to say the very least, but we're going to dive into it a little bit and kind of talk about some of the origins too. Because I think a lot of people don't realize this is just basically the GOP agenda for the past 20 years plus. And they really put it on steroids after 9/11. Anyway, I won't get too far ahead, but we're going to talk about that. But we're going to start with Bernie Sanders making a statement over at CNN. So let's go ahead and start there, Colin. Let's go straight to that video.
I'm hearing from the people of this country, and I get around the country a lot, is that they want politicians to stand up for a working class and take on powerful special interests who are in many ways running our country. You know, I find it interesting. There have been, I think, 5 or 6 articles in the New York Times talking about what the donor class, right? This is what the donors are thinking. Really? The last I heard, American democracy was supposed to be about what ordinary people think, not just wealthy people. So I think the crisis that we're facing right now is that we need a Democratic Party to make it clear they're going to stand up for the working class of this country. They're going to tackle big money interest, and they are going to pass legislation which improves lives for all people, not just a few.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying about the donors. I think the reason people focus on them is because they need money. I mean, Trump is a fundraising machine. Democrats,
but what does
obviously.
that tell you? I mean, it talks about the corruption of the American political system.
Sure, and
that billionaires can spend as much money as they want electing or defeating candidates. That's a real problem.
And that's a larger conversation. But I talked to sources over the last few days who they're getting a lot of phone calls from donors. But on President Biden himself, without.
Yeah, they don't care. They really don't care. Is that the whole thing, Colin? Is there more to that?
That was when they switched subjects at went right there.
So they just jumped right off of it immediately.
He's like, you heard her starting to switch too. Or
yeah, that we just. How sad is it that we just we only care about what the donors want? Bernie starts bringing it up. Bernie has expressed his support for Joe Biden, which is kind of frustrating. We'll also hear from AOC, who said something similar. We'll hear from that very soon. But yeah, this is par for the course. Hey, we're hearing a lot about what the donors want, and we don't see a problem with that. And Bernie Sanders at this point, a lot of times, I feel like he's just sort of a soundboard for the way things ought to be. And then they just sort of ignore it and move on. And I think that in 2016, a lot of us really got our hopes up because we realized there's more of us than we thought that realized that this guy is actually making sense. That said, oh, here's somebody who's actually talking about my interest. Here's somebody who has a chance to be president that also thinks healthcare is a human right and is in the United States. Here's somebody who thinks we do have to do something about college tuition, who thinks we do have to do something about climate change, who thinks that we should actually have a representative democracy, who isn't a fan of the two-party system. And, oh, man, this person actually has a chance. And then, of course, we saw what happened. They kneecapped Bernie twice, and we're at where we're at now. So now I mean, I don't know about y'all, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here. I'm just being real. Whenever I hear Bernie talking and saying something that's painfully obvious about how things should be, yeah, we should hear from the voters, not the freaking donors. That's something that goes without saying. But you just can't help but think, yeah, I know, but they don't. Does anyone care? Is anyone going to do? I mean, it's like shouting into a void. And Bernie gets paid to shout into that void. Let's be real. He's he gets paid to do that. That's his gig. And when I say he gets paid, I mean he's an elected official. So yeah, they just say how it should be, and then the media just moves on. And it's so frustrating. It's so freaking frustrating. And I'm not blaming Bernie as an individual for that. This goes far beyond Bernie. This is a systemic freaking rot. But I'll be honest with you, sometimes it's frustrating. It's actually it's actually almost annoying, because he's saying these things like, well, we should hear from the voters, not the donors. Well, yeah, but we all know that's not the case, and we know why that's not the case. We know why that's not the case. It's the same reason why you were kneecapped in 2 different primaries, because the donors of this country who really run things, they're only going to let so much through. And they're not going to, first of all, they're not going to, we won't have Joe Biden if they decide we shouldn't. If they decide we shouldn't have Joe Biden because we'd rather see a Democrat in the White House than Trump, so replace him. That's the only way we're not going to have Joe Biden, if the donors decide. That won't be what we're told. If Joe Biden steps down, which is possible, I think it's still possible. But if Joe Biden were to step down, I still stand by my 60-40 chance. I think 60% he stays, 40% he goes. That's my guess. But if he does step down, at the end of the day, it'll be because the donor said, this dude's got to step down. That will not be what we're told. What we'll be told is that he got some kind of diagnosis. He got a medical examination. They decided he probably shouldn't continue. He agreed that was a good idea. That's likely what we'll be told. So there you have it. Bernie on CNN stating something that should just be an assumed truth in any real democracy, but we're a fake one. We're an oligarchy. So they just got to shrug it off. Like, yeah, it's just the donors. They need money. They just need money. That's all this is really about. We're CNN, and we'll just be a mouthpiece for him. We don't care. Great. So smash the like button. This is actually somewhere where you can exercise a real democratic process. You can smash the like button. Like this stream, share this stream. If you can, leave me a super chat, would you? I'll get to all your chats at the end. Please do leave a super chat. It helps keep this show on the air. It helps support what we do here at Status Coup. And Status Coup does on the ground journalism. So when you give a super chat to this show, or when you become a member, you're helping keep the story of Flint alive. You're helping to keep the story of East Palestine alive. You're helping us cover more Palestinian protests. Protests for Palestine than any other outlet out there. You helped us stay on the ground for the entirety of the UAW strike. That's what happens when you go to statuscoup.com/join, or when you leave a super chat. Statuscoup.com. I stumbled over that one. That is a tough little statuscoup.com. It doesn't have the easiest flow in the world. But statuscoup.com/join. Sign up. $5 a month, $10 a month. And or give me a super chat. Come on. I love chatting with you guys. Give me a super chat. Give me something to read. All right. So let's move on. Let's do.
Or Real quick, Drew, wanted to mention the Morning Joe clip while you're on the subject of donors, real quick.
Oh yeah. Let's go to Morning Joe. I always value his input. He's
States
great.
and upending 240 years of constitutional norms is quite another. And I will say, again, taking a lot of calls, took a lot of calls from angry Democrats. Now, they were donors. They were elites, what Joe Biden would rightly call elites. And by the way, that is a perfect positioning for Joe Biden. If you've been in politics 54 years and you're 81 years old and you've been a politician since you were 29 and you can run a campaign against elites, come on, take that baby. Like that's a great thing. But that said, there are some really angry people.
Jesus. What was he even saying there? What was he even saying? That was just a whole lot of nothing in one segment. Let's watch it again. I want to watch this one more time because I don't even know the point he's trying to make. Let's watch it one more time, Colin.
Upending 240 years of constitutional norms is quite another. And I will say, again, taking a lot of calls, took a lot of calls from angry Democrats. Now, they were donors. They were elites, what Joe Biden would rightly call elites. And by the way, that is a perfect positioning for Joe Biden. If you've been in politics 54 years and you're 81 years old and you've been a politician since you were 29 and you can run a campaign against elites, come on, take that baby. Like that's a great thing. But that said, there are some really angry people.
What is it? So he's saying that he's hearing from the donors and no one else. And if Joe Biden can run against the donors, he should, which is in a sentimental, that would make sense if Joe Biden was politically running against the donor, but he's not. It's just the donors don't have a problem with Joe Biden because he wants to actually do anything for people. It's not like Joe Biden, oh, we can't let this Joe Biden guy run because he might give everyone health care. We can't let this Joe Biden guy run because he might do something about student loan debt, something real. We can't let this Joe Biden. It's not like it's anything like that. It's, we can't let this Joe Biden guy run because we're worried he's not going to win because he has blatant cognitive decline. I still don't fully know what point Joe was trying to make because it makes no sense what he said. Like, oh, well, if you can run against the elite, they're just worried that you can't win. You're not running against them. But of course, he heard from the donor class, Morning Joe. This is your news media. This is your the voice of the people is just the donor class or their advertisers, and that's it. And outlets like this, that's your voice. We're your voice. We're the voice for the people. We're the voice that goes on the ground and talks to regular people. The corporate media, in all of their infinite resources, doesn't do that. They talk to the donors, and they probably don't even seek them out. The donors probably reach out to them. And that's our news media. And that's part of the reason why we're in the freaking mess we're in. Great job, Morning Joe. Always knocking it out of the park. Let's go to AOC for our next video. This one, hard to watch. It's hard to watch. Let's go to AOC.
Has spoken to the president over the weekend. I have spoken with him extensively. He made clear then, and he has made clear since, that he is in this race. The matter is closed. He had reiterated that this morning. He has reiterated that to the public. Joe Biden is our nominee. He is not leaving this race. He is in this race, and I support him. Now, what I think is critically important right now is that we focus on what it takes to win in November, because he is running against Donald Trump, who is a man with 34 felony convictions that has committed 34 felony crimes, and not a single Republican has asked for Donald Trump to not be the nominee. I I'm here to win on this democracy. I'm here to win in November. And what's critically important is what the president, I believe that the president needs to do, and I have communicated this, what the president and the White House should do in order to make sure that we win in November. And that is making sure that we pivot and working and increasingly commit to the issues that are critically important to working people across this country. How are we going to expand Medicare? How are we going to expand Social Security? How are we going to provide relief to people's rent and mortgages? And if we can do that and continue our work on student loans, secure a ceasefire, and bring those dollars back into investing in public policy, then that's how we win in November. That's what I'm committed to, and that's what I want to make sure that we secure.
But what do you say to members who say they need to see more from the president?
Well, that is all up to their own individual, determination. I respect everyone's opinion, but I'm here to make sure that we win in November, and that's my focus.
And what about young voters? What about?
Well, so there you had AOC reading a DNC press release. She added a little bit to it. She said the word ceasefire, which I'm pretty sure is not allowed. So she did kind of violate a DNC rule there a little bit. And at the very end of that, you saw once again the problem with the squad. The biggest problem with the squad, folks, is that they don't work as a block. If they had a unified voice calling for Joe Biden to step down, it might not make a difference, but it could. But they would never do such a thing. They're not unified on anything. And that's by design. Because if they were, they could actually be a little bit effective. But they're not. And here's the way it works. This isn't, because you're going to see a lot of rage porn about this clip. You probably already have. And don't get me wrong, some frustration is very justified. And I'm sure a lot of it will be. Some of it will just be theater because it's always fun to make, rage porn about AOC. But this is just the reality. This is just the unfiltered freaking reality. When you get into Congress or the Senate, you have a choice. You can take Easy Street and have a career and make a lot of money and play it the company way. Or you can try to fight. You can try to go to the mat. You can make concessions when you need to. And they might let you get away with it if you don't push the buttons too much. But if you do, they'll eventually find out a way to get rid of you. And they'll eventually screw you over. And if you push the buttons too much, they'll get rid of you right away. They'll get rid of you as soon as they can. They'll fund an opponent, and they'll get rid of you. So, I mean, you compare AOC in 2017 or 2018 to now, and it's an entirely different person. I mean, listen to what she just said and compare that to the person who, even after those years, who was saying me and Joe Biden wouldn't even be in the same party if this was a different country. The Democrats aren't a left-wing party. I mean, boy, she sounds a lot different now, doesn't she? It's just, it is the way the system is. And honestly, based on how AOC in particular has been as of recent, I think it's not unfair to say she's chosen Easy Street. I think Rashida Tlaib maybe is going to try to fight back a little bit. But, for the most part, you got a choice. You play it the company way. You let the Democratic Party change you. Or you try to change the Democratic Party, and they get rid of you. That's just how it works. You want a prime example of a guy who played the game the best he could to try to use the office for good, and they ended up eventually getting rid of him anyway? Dennis Kucinich. Dennis Kucinich is someone, and I'm not saying he was perfect, but Dennis Kucinich, in my opinion, is somebody who played the game he had to play, tried to use the office for good for the best of his ability, made concessions when he had to, and they still screwed him over anyway. He made concessions for Obama. Obama redistricted him, and they got rid of him anyway. It took him a while, but they eventually got rid of him. And that's how it goes. That is how it goes. So whether it's AOC or anyone else, they're either going to pick Easy Street or they're going to try to play the game and navigate the waters. But if they ruffle anything, if they ruffle any feathers too much, they're gone. That's our political system. That's why when you get squad members elected and they run on a certain platform, they need to stay unified. They need to stay unified and operate as a block. You know why? And we're going to find out why more, because one of the things I'm going to talk about today is what's going on in France. We're going to talk about the election in France, and we're going to talk about why something like that couldn't really happen here, at least not anytime soon. But because we don't have a parliamentary system, because we don't have more than two parties, when we do have the quote-unquote progressive wing getting elected, they need to stick together and work as a block, or they won't be effective at all. And well, there's only 6 of them. Yeah, I get that. They're outnumbered. Nobody disputes that. But that 6 needs to work as a block, or they won't be able to leverage the power they do have. And you see it once again. Well, we respect everyone as individuals. That's the opposite of what you're supposed to do. That's you guys, the squad, are supposed to work as a block. And if you wanted to make a statement about this presidency, you could have come together. Said we think it's for the good of the party that Joe Biden steps down, whatever. But really disappointing. Really, really disappointing. But, you know, time will tell which lane AOC chose, which lane Rashida Tlaib chooses, which lane Ilhan Omar chooses. But I promise you, it's going to be one of those two. They're either going to pick straight up easy street, or they're going to try to use the office for good. They'll be kept under the thumb, and eventually they'll be forced out. That's just how it works. That's just how it works. So let's go to Project 2025. You saw AOC mention Project 2025, which is Project 2025 is a pretty freaking gnarly thing. It is a bad thing. But here's the other component here. It's nothing new. Colin, let's go to that tweet first. So this is something pertaining to climate in 2025. The stuff in Project 2025 on climate and fossil fuels. This is from Jamie Climate. The stuff in Project 2025 on climate and fossil fuels is even worse than you would imagine. As Michael Mann said, this would be game over for climate progress. If you care about a livable future, it's worth understanding what's in this radical right blueprint. Buckle up. Let's go ahead and scroll down. First, you've got to understand that Project 2025 comes straight out of the well-oiled climate denial machine. It was put together by right-wing think tanks funded by the likes of ExxonMobil and the Koch brothers. Big Oil's fingerprints are all over this. These are the real radicals. Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, the lead organization behind Project 2025, has said that the solution to so-called climate change are worse than the problem itself and loves to talk about the moral case for fossil fuels. No wonder that Project 2025 reads like a handbook for planetary destruction. Let's look at the details. First, they want to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act and infrastructure investments that have created over 312,000 jobs and pumped $361 billion into clean energy projects. Again, a fraction of what we need, but more than nothing. I mean, you don't even have to care about the climate. Clean energy is a huge driver of job growth. It's bringing back manufacturing, revitalizing community, lowering costs, making us competitive with China. Stopping this industry makes us weaker across the board. And that's not false, by the way. A lot of people don't look at climate change as the opportunity that it actually is. It's an opportunity to build a better society. And yes, that comes with jobs. The plan would also dismantle all of our clean energy programs like the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, the DOE Loan Program, the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, and DOE's Clean Energy Corps. They'll do everything they can to kill clean energy in the U.S. All right, let's go to the website, project2025.org. We don't need to read that entire thread. So this is 2025.org. Building now for conservative victory through policy, personnel, and training. Ooh. All right. Now, by the way, don't forget to sign up for updates. Put your email address. But put your email address in to find out how they're going to destroy our freaking world. It is not enough for conservatives to win elections, although they do that all the time in the United States because, most of them are Republicans or Democrats. If we are going to rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, which has no actual power, these guys live in an alternate reality. These guys live in an alternate reality where the left has any power whatsoever in the United States. The left has none. We have no power at all in this country, no say in anything, no representation. We got nothing. They're like, we have to free this country from the radical left. All we have fighting for us are all of the judges, every court system, pretty much the entire political system, millions and millions, scratch that, billions of dollars, every lobbying group, every CEO. Outside of that, we have nothing to fight the radical left because look at what they have. University. Well, no, they don't really have that. Let's see. They got big groups of. They don't have that. Large, not really. The radical left has something. We'll figure it out and make a press release that scares everybody. Anyway, so they're rescuing the world from the radical left or whatever. We need both a governing agenda and the right people in place ready to carry out this agenda of day one of the next conservative administration. This is the goal of the Project 2025 presidential transition project. So let's go to their pillars. A policy agenda, training, 180-day playbook, personnel database. You can join their personnel. How about that? So let's go to here. There was a thing about, all right, let's go to the about section. Because here's the deal. We're gonna go look at this. Go to the about section, Colin. All right, and this is sort of the same. It's not enough to just win elections. Blah, 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 blah. Look at these people. Paul Dance, the Heritage Foundation, the Heritage Foundation, the Heritage Foundation. So like they mentioned earlier, the Heritage Foundation is connected to the Koch brothers. These are some of the leading conservative think tanks in the world. They have a fringe far-right agenda, and they have been around for a very, very long time. This goes back, a lot of this can be traced back to Reagan, but more specifically, the George W. Bush administration. So after 9/11, the George W. Bush administration ushered in the new American century, the Halliburton interest of Dick Cheney, the Koch brothers, the Heritage Foundation, and they basically made a blueprint for the type of country they want to have. And it's a type of country where you can't get an abortion. It's a type of country where the fossil fuel industry can do whatever they want. It's a type of country that'll never see a war it doesn't like. That's what Project 2025 is. But here's the deal. Project 25, as dangerous and fascist as it is, has been around for over 20 years. They just didn't have a creepy ass name for it. It was just called the Bush administration. And then it was just called the GOP agenda. It was just the platform of the GOP. Well, now they have this creepy branding and name for it. So people are going, oh man, this is really dangerous. Yeah, this has been around for a long freaking time. That's why leftists in this country are suggesting you don't put up a geriatric dude who might have dementia against Donald Trump. You actually have a true alternative instead of somebody who politically isn't that much different and doesn't even have his faculties. Again, stating the blatant obvious. And then the people who are supposed to be with you politically are talking about how much they support Joe Biden. And you know what? If Joe Biden loses, don't blame your nearest leftist, okay? Because it is not the left's fault if Joe Biden loses. It is the fault of Joe Biden himself. And this Project 2025, honestly, what this is really telling you is that they don't need to keep the mask on anymore. They can go full mask off about what it is they're trying to do. They're trying to straight up make this country a theocratic fascist regime with no wiggle room at all. And that's what they've been trying to do. There's a really good BBC documentary about the whole thing. Go watch The Power of Nightmares. And you watch that documentary. BBC made it. It wasn't even a domestic thing. And it breaks it down And you'll be, oh, Project 2025 is nothing new. This has been around a long freaking time. This is just the agenda of the GOP and the agenda of just the right wing. And it's shared by plenty of Democrats, too. You think Joe Manchin isn't fine with Project 2025? And to be honest, to go even bigger picture here, this is what lesser of two evils gets you. Because when you keep going, lesser of two evils, lesser of two evils, lesser of two evils, guess what? The evils keep getting worse and worse. And that's why we now have two candidates to the right of Ronald Reagan running in the year 2024. That's why, because you keep, let's go a little more. I would be, and I've said this before, and I've said this in conversations with friends. I'll say it now. I would be all about the, quote, lesser of two evils if it worked. Clearly, it doesn't work. Unless you're a fascist, then it's working great. But if you want any type of progressive change, hell, even if you're an actual centrist, lesser of two evils, it doesn't work. If we've been doing it for 20 some years at least, and the candidates keep getting worse. If it was working, if we had been doing lesser of two evils since Reagan, and now every Democrat is to the left of Bernie Sanders, and every Republican is a more Ron Paul style libertarian, then I'd be like, well, guys, lesser of two, it works. Look, it's clearly working. like the candidates keep getting better and better. And then all of a sudden, eventually, it won't even be the lesser of two evils anymore. It'll be, hey, I'm going to vote for the candidate who's better. Imagine, I think the comic, Gianmarco Soresi, I think I might be mispronouncing his name, which is bad because we're both Italian, but Gianmarco Soresi, he tweeted about France, and he said, imagine having something to vote for. Imagine wanting to vote for something instead of just voting against something really terrible. So yeah, Project 2025, very dangerous, very effed up, but nothing new. People who are making it out like this is some unique thing, this is just what the GOP is trying to do, and plenty of Democrats are complicit in it. And it's always been around. And it's not going to go away. Even if Trump loses, it doesn't go away. They don't even mention, did you notice? We were on their actual website. They don't even mention Donald Trump. Or at least they didn't mention him much. They said conservative administration or whatever. So, yeah. And they got money. They got all the money in the world. That's why when people say, oh, the lefties just need to do what the Tea Party did. The Tea Party had all the funding in the world. They weren't some grassroots movement. So, smash the like button. Again, exercise your actual democratic right and smash the freaking like button. For anyone just joining, we showed Bernie's CNN appearance where he pointed out that the donors shouldn't just have the say on all candidates. Smash the like button. We listened to AOC reiterate her support for Joe Biden and Project 2025. We talked about that. So let's stay on Biden for a little bit here. And let's go to the doctor, Colin. I believe there's a video for that. This is the doctor who had some things to say about Joe Biden's health.
Oh, yeah. I see him 20 times a day in clinic. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, oh, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part of that, too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemma dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordotically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
Here are some of the symptoms from Parkinson's. We just had him up there on the screen. If we can put him back. What about the movement? Some people have pointed out the way he walks. Sometimes it's not very fast, small steps. Is that something that is common in people who are battling a disease like Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's a hallmark. Shuffling gait, we call that, so little steps. Loss of arm swing from the rigidity. When we walk, we have a nice cadence. You notice he doesn't really swing his arms. And end block turning, meaning he kind of pivots around his foot. If you said, hey, President Biden, he wouldn't go like this. So, yeah.
But I also know, and tell me if I'm wrong here, it's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? It's not simple. I mean, I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diagnose, actually.
Right,
but it's so clinic. There's very little others. And I'm a Democrat.
This reporter keeps swinging and missing. Yeah, but it might just be a stutter. Nope. Here's all the reasons why it's for sure not that. Yeah, but Parkinson's, that's really hard to diagnose, right? Well, when it comes to these movements. And by the way, even if that was the case, which I'd imagine in many circumstances it is, he's talking to a Parkinson's expert. Isn't that hard to diagnose? Well, I'm an expert in it, though. We're talking about the disease I've spent my entire career studying. Yeah, but it's hard, right? Isn't that hard? All right,
about this, right? It's just like this guy is not a hard case.
But I've had relatives who have gone through neurological issues, and I've heard that sometimes Parkinson's is not very easy to nail. You have to take a lot of tests.
I've heard stuff from my friends. This reporter's great. This reporter's. Yeah, but hold on. I know you're an expert in this, but let me look. My buddy at the wine club said Parkinson's. It's a weird thing to diagnose, and I said, that's strange. We were just talking about football. How'd the conversation go here? But anyway, that's what he said. Back to you. This is a great comedy sketch.
I mean, it's early on. If you're just presented with like hallucinations, that could be a variety of things, or just the cognitive problems. That could be Alzheimer's versus Parkinsonism, and that becomes a little nebulous. But once you start manifesting the hallmark motor symptoms,
right?
Slow movement, rigidity, mass facies, hypophonia. I mean, if a med student did not pick Parkinson's on the test, they'd be remediated.
So let me ask you: if you had, and I know you can't.
Now, honestly, y'all, it's a good thing I never went to med school, because if somebody told me Biden's got something, what do you think it is? I would have said dementia. Now, part of that is because I don't know all the signs for Parkinson's, which, by the way, if I was a reporter, I would divert to the expert on Parkinson's, because I'm for sure not. Anyway, all right, let's watch the rest of this.
You have no idea what happened in the White House, but a neurologist coming 8 times in 8 months, does that tell you anything? Is that, I mean, I know you're just sort of speculating here, but does that tell you anything or no?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're like the best of friends or something, but that's a very specific, he's a movement disorder. That's a subspecialist in exactly what he has. And there's very few young people, like a Marine Guard. Most people would be med boarded out for any type of movement disorder at a young age. Like if you had Huntington's chorea, early onset Parkinson's, dystonia, bad essential tremor, you're usually med boarded out. So I highly doubt there's...
What does that mean, med boarded out?
Med boarded, mean the military would not let you, if you have seizures, for example, you cannot usually be in the military. That is, you are
so
medical
you're saying you don't necessarily believe, and they're not saying this, but they said there's thousands of military members that go to the White House and are treated there for health reasons.
Yeah.
You're not buying that that's a random military person.
No, that would be very odd to just see a random movement disorder case at the White House, especially a young guard. There aren't many young people that have movement disorders that could be in the military.
And then, a lot of people have called for a cognitive test. What exactly would that entail? What does that mean?
Now, that's the key, because word finding retrieval doesn't necessarily mean you don't know what you want to say. What I cannot comment on is his ability to make good decisions. His motor symptoms are degenerating. He has Parkinsonism. That is a fact. He has degeneration of the brain. Show me the MRI. Show me he doesn't. Put your money where your mouth is. He definitely has it. But the problem is, when you look at his situation, you can't say, oh, I know for a fact that because he didn't retrieve the word, he didn't know what he wanted to say. And that's why both him and Trump should take the 4-hour neuropsychological testing, which is the hallmark test for cognitive performance.
Amen. Make them take it. Why should he not have to take that when he is showing these signs? And yeah, make them both take it. I mean, Trump's bragging about how he did on his cognitive test. Make him take it. Donald Trump has shown symptoms as well. Make them both take it. And by the way, let's take a step back and realize how freaking sad it is. We are in this situation. We are in this situation with two geriatric right-wing loons. Just, and those are our choices. You know, and these people who make it out like, oh, you don't be hard on Biden or else we'll get Trump again. That's not how it freaking works. This guy is unfit to be in office. He's unfit. And Trump shouldn't be there either. The guy did conflict of interest, financial corruption every freaking day he was in the White House. Every day. He used the White House to just enrich his personal businesses in such an on-the-surface, obscene way that guy shouldn't be anywhere near the White House. And Joe Biden doesn't have the faculties. And by the way, they both support genocide. They're both are terrible on foreign policy and domestic. I mean, this is... Eventually, you have to just come to grips where this is unacceptable. This is just unfrickin' acceptable. And I know I'm preaching to the choir because so many people just realize this. And this is why so many people don't vote in this country. And again, this is what lesser of two evils gets you. When you keep just letting things get a little worse and a little worse and a little worse and a little worse for 40 years. Everybody, you talk to anyone, it's like, yeah, they've been, as long as I've been voting, that's what we've been told. Hey, I know this candidate's not great, but you just got to hold your nose. And then we'll get, in 4 years, it'll be the time. It's never going to be the time. You know why? Because the Republicans aren't going to get less crazy. These people, oh, we just got to hold our nose because the other guy's a fascist. The other guy's always going to be a fascist. Look at the GOP. Look at the GOP. What do you see that gives you a refreshing vibe in the wings? Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're not going to not be a fascist. It's not going to go. The toothpaste is out of the frickin' tube, and it's been out of the tube for a long frickin' time. And you know what has beaten fascism in the past? Not centrism. Not centrism. Communism, that's beaten fascism. Socialism, that's beaten fascism. Middle of the road, let's negotiate. Let's compromise. Let's have civility. That doesn't beat fascism. There's a time, this is kind of an aside, but, you know, I heard someone was saying this, how we need more civility in the age we're living in. And you know what? On the micro level, there's definitely some truth to that. When you're talking to your neighbors, totally, there's some truth to that. But on the macro level, guess what? I don't think you deserve to exist is not an opposing viewpoint. That's not something you negotiate. That's something that can't be freaking accepted. You should die is not an opposing viewpoint. And that's the time we're living in. That is the time that we are living in as a society. And it's not just in the United States. It's all over the place. But guess what we're learning? Around the world, they're saying no to this stuff, and they're saying it very firmly. They just made a very significant statement out in France. And here we're pontificating about two geriatric candidates to the right of Reagan. France, they just actually had a huge social democratic win, a huge lefty win. And here we're pontificating about two candidates to the right of Ronald Reagan. What a time. What a time. Guys, please smash the like button. We're going to go to France now, and we're going to talk about it. Or actually, let's go to the homelessness thing real quick, Colin. Let's go there first. I want to close with France. We'll go to the homelessness story in San Francisco, and then we'll go to we'll check out the meeting real quick, see if there are any updates. I don't think there will be, but we'll go there really quick before we go to France, and that'll be how we wrap up the show. So this is out of San Francisco, California, the supposed progressive utopia, except it isn't, because that's Nancy Pelosi's district, among other issues. Court order restricting San Francisco homeless sweeps is officially no more. Sweeps, for anyone who's not familiar with what sweeps are, it's when cops just basically go destroy everything that homeless people have. People who are on the streets and they have encampments and they have tents because that's their only shelter. Police just go and destroy all of that. It's barbaric, it's cruel, it's dangerous for everybody involved, and it's completely inhumane. And it is the opposite of how you solve a housing crisis. And we spend millions of dollars doing it each year. Millions. That's what sweeps are. It would be more affordable to just give everyone housing, but we can't do that. Court order restricting San Francisco homeless sweeps is officially no more. An appeals court on Monday overturned an injunction that had prevented San Francisco from enforcing or threatening to enforce laws that prohibit sitting, lying, or lodging on public property against involuntary homeless people for over a year. Now, why were they able to do this? Here's the big kicker, and here's why we're talking about this today. The ruling is a direct result of the U.S. Supreme Court's landmark decision late last month, which gives American cities more latitude in clearing homeless encampments. They criminalized homelessness. That's what the Supreme Court did recently. They criminalized homelessness. So now stuff like this can happen. Now they can just throw homeless people in jail more easily. Now they can do sweeps more easily. And guess what? They're going to throw people in jail when they're doing these sweeps. That's what they'll do. This is a major victory for elected officials and residents who had been raising concerns about the conditions of San Francisco's streets for years. No, a victory would have been a housing first initiative in San Francisco. Something a place like San Francisco can afford many times over. Instead, they're going to brutalize houseless people. Advocates have spoken out against the High Court's ruling, claiming it criminalizes homelessness, that's what it does, and sweeps the issue under the rug. It quite literally sweeps the issue, but not under the rug. It brutalizes people. It destroys people's few possessions. I mean, what kind of society even comes to that? It's so offensive beyond comprehension. We can go off the article now, Colin. It's so offensive beyond comprehension that sweeps exist. And it's equally as offensive that they were even thought of in the first place. Like, when you think about what our society does, if society just restarted and we were thinking about, okay, what's the best way to run a society? If somebody came up with the ideas that we have now, you would think that person was incredibly emotionally disturbed. Let's say we have New Cityville, USA, and we're in New Cityville, Iowa, USA. I don't know why I picked Iowa, just because it's in the middle. And we're all there, and we're going, all right, how should we run our society? Well, we have people who don't have homes. What should we do about that? Someone might say, well, they're just lazy. They should get jobs. And that person is kind of a jerk. Someone else might say, we should have a housing first initiative where housing is a human right. That person would be correct. And then there might be a third person who's even worse than that second person, who says, you know what I think we should do? I think we should pay millions of dollars to have cops go around and just destroy everything they have. Just basically like a giant terror machine to just quite literally chase them around and just brutalize them. That sounds dangerous. Yeah. That sounds psychotic. Yeah. And by the way, here's another way of looking at it. You know, whenever you hear these people say things like back the blue, blue lives matter, I support the police, what I would love to ask a lot of those people, do you support sweeps? And if they say yes, I'll be like, well, then how do you support police then? Because let me ask you this. How is it, my assessment is if you support law enforcement, part of supporting law enforcement would include not putting them in harm's way unless it is 100% necessary. Is that an unreasonable thing? Do you agree with that? Would you agree that if you support law enforcement, you would say that includes not putting them in harm's way unless there is no choice, unless there is absolutely no other alternative? Do you agree with that? Most reasonable people would say, yeah, I agree with that. Okay, well then, when they do sweeps, when cops have to do sweeps, it is insanely dangerous for the houseless people who are being brutalized, but it's dangerous for the cops as well. They're going into conditions where there may be unsanitary circumstances. They may encounter, who knows? I mean, they could get COVID. They could get whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of like they don't know what they're going into. They might encounter a person who is severely mentally disturbed. That person might have a weapon. It's not safe for anyone involved, even cops. So if you back the blue, why would you support something like sweeps? It makes you're basically saying, hey, here's a really dangerous situation there's no reason for you to be in, but I think you should be in it because I support you. On what planet does that make sense? Well, the United States. Not a planet, but, but that's a way of looking at it that kind of flips it on its head, doesn't it? All right. So that's what's happening now that the Supreme Court has demonized homelessness. Let's go to that tweet. Let's see if there's any updates. So there's a closed door meeting going on in the Senate right now. And we don't know what exactly there is going on. All right. So inside the Senate Senate Democrats, they are still at a Biden impasse. Biden supporters pitched critics on the dangers of Trump and defended even the president's most glaring flaws, like his speech gaffes and shaky public appearances. Boy, is that being generous. Speech gaffes. No, and some of his public appearances were shaky. Oh, he had his speech. A speech gaffe is when I say StatusCoup.com too fast and I flub over it. That's a speech gaffe. A speech gaffe is when you mix up a word or two. Or a speech gaffe is what I just did, where you say as an aside where it doesn't actually fit. Which I do that sometimes. We all do. We're all human. That's a speech gaffe. A speech gaffe is not when you do what Joe Biden did in a debate. Where if you really listen to what Joe Biden was saying, he actually had his points, but they were misappropriated. They were at random times. They weren't cohesive. It wasn't a cohesive thought. It was like the equivalent of going, I like to throw the dog. My ball's name is Strawberry. I like to eat Roger. You know what I mean? Like he had his points, but they weren't in the right order. They were all over the place. And that supports what that Parkinson's expert was saying, because he was saying, look, it's not like they don't know what they want to say. It's that they can't get to it in various capacities. Obviously, that guy described it with much more medical knowledge than I just did, but you get the idea. All right. So Schumer didn't make an argument for or against Biden. I'm Chuck Schumer, and I'm totally neutral on everything except when it comes to antitrust legislation. Other than that, I'm neutral. Oh, and genocide. I like genocide. But when it comes to Biden or not Biden, gee shucks, don't ask me to make a decision. Sanders and Bennett raised concerns about the Biden and Dems campaign lack of an economic message. Thanks for raising those concerns. Nothing will be done about it. The Bernie Biden task force got a few concessions out of Biden. That was it. And that's all we're going to get. He doesn't have to do another task force. You know why? Because there wasn't a frickin' primary. And because Bernie, and I think the day after he won in 2020, Bernie endorsed him for 2024. But thanks for raising those concerns. We appreciate it. Wow. You couldn't pitch this as a sketch. They'd say it was too unrealistic. All right. So are there any updates? Let's go down the thread. Is there any? Let's just Google it, see what happens.
I just pulled up one right here.
All right, what's going on? Did Joe Biden quit? You want to break the news? Is he out?
But yeah, I'll scroll up this guy. You can read this guy's Twitter feed, and I'll scroll up. But he's got a couple updates.
Okay, all right. So here's the updates. Dems want to see Biden in more unscripted. That's awesome. Dems want to see Biden in more unscripted settings, even his supporters. This, boy, to be a fly at the wall at this stupid meeting. Just, all right, look, how do we got to test the guy. He won't take a cognitive test. All right, let's see if he can do improv. Let's see if Joe Biden can yes and. All right, let's just see what happens. Maybe he can. Let's see how well he recounts the legend of Corn Pop. I was sitting in a lifeguard chair. Joe, your turn. Yes, and I like ice cream. That's not really, well, technically that's sort of related. All right, we'll give you half credit there. Okay, let's see. I was hanging out with Corn Pop. Yes, yeah, Joe Biden, you're up. We beat Medicare. Yeah, no, that was not. Yeah, okay. Let's try a different exercise. Remember, Biden told Democratic governors last week that he planned to do more unscripted events. We will see. I'm looking forward to it. I think Biden's going to be on America's Got Talent. He's just going to do he's going to do an unscripted monologue. He's going to be, somebody shout out a topic. House reporter behavior seeped over to the Senate today. Not good. Dems want to see Biden. Okay, we're already there. Sends John Tester, Michael Bennett, and Sharon Brown told their colleagues at lunch today that Biden can't beat Trump in November. A source familiar tells me, confirming with CNN. They're probably right. He probably can't. All right. So do we have the big update now? What's the meaty update, Colin?
That's all the Twitter updates. Let's see if this article
President Biden's, Axios. This is the article. President Biden's biggest supporters and skeptics in the Senate remained at odds. All right, so that's still going on. Why it matters? Why the hell do they need that? Why it matters? Well, because he's either going to run or he isn't, and it's a frickin' presidential election. All right. Behind closed doors, Biden's staunchest supporters like Chris Coons pitched other Democrats on the dangers of defended, some blah, blah, blah. Others. Couldn't the not Biden supporters also pitch the dangers of Trump? Couldn't they be, hey, we agree on the dangers of Trump, which means our guy shouldn't be this dude? You know, and I'll say it again. I think the biggest thing Biden and Trump have in common, other than way too many policy positions, is that they're both going up against the only person they can freaking beat. Others who are skeptical that Biden can defeat Trump said the conversation was constructive, but many remained unmoved. All right, well, if they think it was constructive, I'll take their word for it. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who just wants to stay out of it. Why can't we all just get along? Who has publicly supported Biden, facilitated the discussion, but not make an argument for or against the president, of course. Good, blah, blah, blah. Bernie Sanders. All right, this is all the same shit. Schumer. He's still standing behind Biden. Schumer made a definitive decision, guys. Doesn't happen often. How about that? Good job, Chuck Schumer, making a decision. He's one of those guys where you look at him and you're like, how does he decide what to have for breakfast in the morning? Like, how does he make that definitive decision? Where he's, well, I could have eggs or I could have just some toast. I don't want to complicate things. But I mean, what if did the American people want me to have toast? All right, anyway. All right, so it doesn't look like there's any updates. The Senate Democrats are debating the very not debatable topic over whether Joe Biden is fit to run for office or not. He's not. He's not. But they're still pontificating about it. All right. Let's go to France. Literally. Let's all just get on a plane and go. It's a more respectable country. We should just go. So here's what happened in France. We're going to go to the BBC piece first, Colin, and then we're going to go to the other piece. Let's go to the BBC piece first. French socialists eyes PM job, but deadlock persists. So here's what happened in France. The left got a victory, basically. The leader of France's Socialist Party, Olivier Faure, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Olivier Faure, that kind of had an Italian pronunciation. He's French, so whatever. I'm not going to try a third time. Has thrown his hat in the ring to be prime minister after the left-wing alliance, which he belonged to, won Sunday's parliamentary elections. He said he was ready to assume this function, but only as part of the dialogue with our partners. The leftist New Popular Front, which also includes socialists, Greens, and communists, were the surprise winners on Sunday. The left won, and it consisted of socialists, Greens, and communists. That was the real flank. That was the real coalition. Victorious MPs from the left-wing alliance arrived in parliament on Tuesday and called on President Emmanuel Macron to nominate a prime minister from their party. Under French convention, the president names a prime minister from the winning party. However, Sunday's election has left the country in political deadlock with no obvious route to a government. The Popular Front won 182 seats, but the Macron alliance was not far behind with 168. This is misleading, and I'm going to tell you why shortly. I wanted to read this sentence on purpose. Keep in mind, the BBC, they're a corporate outlet. They're better than our corporate media, but that's not saying a whole lot. And they, of course, will kind of put down lefties. So this is misleading. So we'll read a couple more paragraphs here, then I'll go to why it's misleading. With three powerful blocs in French politics, none can form an outright majority. Without enough support to survive a censure vote and no confidence, there is little chance of any left-wing government surviving for long on its own. There's been some concern among centrists inside the Macron alliance that the president has made no public comments since the election result. Okay. The Macron camp, as much as the left, believes it can find a way of forming a minority government. Instead of naming a new prime minister, the president asked outgoing Prime Minister Gabriel Attal to remain in office for the time being to ensure the stability of France. All right, so here's the deal. Let's go to that Politico piece, Colin. This is why what they said about, Macron was in a close second. Macron's party, or his alliance, rather, was in a close second. That's kind of inaccurate because let's take a look at the chart. Let's go to the Politico piece. So the left won, and here's the result. Let's scroll down to that chart. So the new Popular Front, that's like the left flank that included the socialists, the communists, the Greens, and then the ensemble, those are the centrists. Okay. They lost 76 seats. So, yes, they still have a close amount of seats. But the way BBC framed it, they were like, they finished close to second. No. They had a bunch of seats to begin with. They finished in the negative. Why is that relevant? That's relevant because it's showing that the people spoke and centrism is losing. Centrism is not doing great. They actually lost. Now, the far right had a sizable gain, unfortunately. The far right had a sizable gain, but it's more the far left and the far right, and the far left is victorious. So France was a significant win for the left, and they're trying to make it out. They're trying to make it out like, it's because the liberals helped. No. The liberals, quote-unquote liberals, lost. And I say quote-unquote because keep in mind, Emmanuel Macron, who I'm no fan of, but he's an actual centrist, which means he is to the left of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is right-wing by French standards. So Macron, an actual centrist, is to the left of the Democratic Party. That's not saying much, but I'm just saying he's to the left of the Democratic Party, and he's to the right of the new Popular Front, which was Social Democrats, which was Greens, which was Communists, which was Socialists. So this whole thing, because they're trying to make it out like the lefties couldn't have done what they did without Macron and his alliance. No, it's the opposite. They would have lost by a lot if it wasn't for the lefties. And this is why something like this can't happen in the United States, because in the United States, we have two parties, which go ahead and show my tweet, Colin. We have two parties. It's a little curious. Now, this tweet was kind of popular. I'm surprised so many people connected with this tweet. And I can't stand Twitter these days, but hey, it's cool that this happened. It's a little curious seeing U.S. liberals celebrate France. You realize the people who won are the people you do everything in your power to stop from getting past a primary in your country, right? Which is the frickin' truth. The left won in France. And part of the reason the left won in France is because they have a parliamentary system where they have more than two frickin' parties. So they don't have this one party that can put its thumb on the scale and stop the progressives from ever getting any type of political power. All right, you can get off my tweet. Thanks. I'll like force you guys to stare at my tweet for the rest of the show. Like, look at it. I did it myself. But give it up for Colin on the ones and twos, by the way. I always give Colin an official plug. I didn't do it yet. But give Colin yeah. Anyway, so France, because they have a more parliamentary system, they actually have left parties that can gain seats. And when you have that, you have coalitions that can form. So in this case, the centrists, even though they lost, they still kind of won because they were in coalition with the leftists. They were both in coalition saying, we don't want this far right. We don't want Le Pen. We want them out of here. But that's an actual coalition. And some liberals in the United States, which again, if you're a liberal in the United States, you'd be considered right wing over there. They're saying, oh, well, this is a lesson to you lefties to unite with us. No. It's a completely different circumstance. The liberals had to go to the leftists. It wasn't the leftists who were. And by the way, if you really want to form a coalition like that in the United States, something comparable in our system, that would involve Joe Biden. Assuming Joe Biden's the nominee, that would involve Joe Biden going to Jill Stein and asking her to be his running mate. That's what that would mean. You want to actually forming an alliance doesn't mean you tell the other side, shut the hell up and give us whatever we want. That's not an alliance. An alliance is actually saying, we're coming together against this cause. We have our differences, but we're working together here. And you actually have representation. So that would, the American equivalent of that would be Joe Biden or whoever the Democratic nominee is going to the Greens, the Socialists, Cornel West, et cetera, and saying, we want you to have some representation. We want you to have an appointment. We want you, Jill Stein's going to be in charge of the EPA, whatever. That would be what it would mean in our two-party duopoly system to have an actual alliance. So, I mean, I'd be all for something like that. And then what would happen is the Democrats would actually have to be a real centrist party. They couldn't be a right-wing party cosplaying as a centrist party. They'd have to be an actual centrist party. And I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine if the Democrats were actually a centrist party, because I'd be in the left-wing part. Well, I am in the left-wing party, but I'd be part of the left flank trying to push them on our platform. But we don't have that because the left has no electoral power. So the Democrats are a right-wing party and the Republicans are a fascist party. You know? So what happened in France was cool. It's a victory. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things prohibiting us from doing something like that in the United States, but it's not impossible. And to all the like DNC liberals I've seen on social media trying to say, oh, we should learn a lesson from France. Like, okay, well, that starts with you guys giving the left a real olive branch and saying, shut up and vote for us. That's not an olive branch. Saying, hey, you're an idiot and you suck if you don't vote for our candidates. That's not an olive branch. That is not an olive branch. So that's kind of taking a look at what happened in France and applying it to this. Fiona, welcome again to the membership. Thank you so much for being a Status Coup member. Guys, when you go to statuscoup.com/join, your funds are going to on-the-ground journalism. You're supporting on-the-ground journalism. Please become a member today. Arlene Chambers, all the same talking points, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know. I think that was the AOC clip. Yeah, it was hard to watch. Thank you very much for your super chat contribution, though, Arlene, and I hope you are doing awesome. Miss Chickio 007, shaken, not stirred. Thank you very much for the super chat contribution. Hope you are well. Jeremy Elwood, Jeremy, how's it going? Good to see you, pal. Don't let them vote shame you. We warned them. They want to keep blaming progressives for their loss, rather than wondering why they lost progressives. Oh yeah, it'll be the same playbook over and over and over again. And I like how my favorite part, Jeremy, is how everybody pretends they don't understand how the Electoral College works. I love that part. I love that part where people will go up to me, a voter in California. It's your fault. It's your fault that Trump won because you voted green. Do you understand how the Electoral College works? Yeah. Well, then you would know that my vote had nothing to do with anything. The only way my vote could help is if the party I voted for got to 5%, because then they would get matching funds. Yeah, it's still your fault. No, it's not. Yeah, it's still, you need to have somebody more patient than me teach you how the Electoral College works. Honestly, I don't have the patience for it. Because I think you're intentionally trying to not understand it at this point. I'm sure some of you all have had those conversations before. I know I have. Jeremy, Congress needs to pass forgiving all student medical debt. I agree. Tell SCOTUS they can't touch. Yes, they can do that. Biden signs. He's officially immune. That'd be great. And yeah, he could do that. Biden could. I don't know all the details about medical debt, but I know that, yeah, Biden could. Well, yeah, because he could use the same statute that he could use to student debt to just wipe out medical debt. So yeah, stroke of a pen, he could do that. The people that say otherwise, they're repeating DNC propaganda, quite frankly, because the convoluted way Biden went about it, the court was able to shut that down. There's a more direct way he could have went about it, and he could have wiped it all out. And it's just via constitutional powers that he does have. They'd still fight it. Like, it's not like they wouldn't fight it in court, but it'd be hard for them to overturn it. But he's not even going to try because he doesn't want to. Nadia, what's up? Project 2025, splitting message because of censorship. Right on. Always good to hear from you, Nadia. Mass in prisons, continue message part 2. Yep. Oh, yeah. Well, and it's because they all have money in the prison industry. They want more people in jail because they get money from it. All trans people and women who get caught having abortions. It does mass R word. I'm not sure what you mean there. It does mass R word. Yeah, I don't know. Mass murder and mass murder via forced birth. Yeah, to women en masse. Yeah, thank you for that. More parties or no parties plus ranked choice voting necessary. I agree with you, Jeremy. Nadia, thank you very much for your thoughts. I broke it down the best I could there. I'm not sure what the R word thing was. That's I'm missing that, so I apologize. Let's see here. Jeremy, thank you so much for this. Jeremy just gifted a 1-year Status Coup membership to one lucky person. Thank you so much for that. Much appreciated. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. Let me make sure I get everybody. Yeah, I think that covers it. But yeah, they're going to eliminate abortion. They're going to increase prisons. They're going to gut all environmental protections. That's what Project 2025 is all about. That's what it's been about. And it's been around for a long, long time. And it's going to try to eliminate trans people. Abso-freaking-lutely. Yeah, I mean, it's basically a theocratic fascist regime. And it's incredibly dangerous. When I say it's not new, I'm not saying it's not dangerous. It is. But I'm just saying it's nothing new. This is what they've been trying to do for 20 years. So, at least 20 years. Maybe more than that. Guys, I will announce a shameless plug here. YouTube. So now all podcasts, you can subscribe to them right on YouTube because Google Podcasts ended. So now the new substitute for Google Podcasts is just RSS Podcasts on YouTube. So you can follow my podcast, the 1000 with Ron Placone. You can follow that right on YouTube. So please, if you haven't checked out my podcast yet, you can get it right on YouTube. Thank you so much for that, Colin. Colin made this, by the way. It's called 1000 Podcasts with Ron Placone. The premise is I interview 1,000 different people who have piqued my interest in some way. So I interview people in the political space. I interview musicians. I interview activists. I interview comedians. I interview political thinkers. I interview philosophers. Some of my guests have included Jello Biafra, legendary singer, best known for the Dead Kennedys, but he's done a ton of other stuff. Russ Rankin from the band Good Riddance, Martin Barr from Jethro Tull, Margaret Kimberly, Dr. Gabriel Rockhill, Cory Doctorow. Who else? My guest this week was Mike Park from Asian Man Records. People have called me out for having a bit of a music bias. Some people are saying, Ron, you got a lot of music interviews, There's some really amazing up and coming acts that I interview. I interviewed Nicola Wren from the Darts. If you haven't checked out the Darts, you have to. They're a fantastic garage punk band. Yeah, check out my podcast. Beans on Toast, the anti-war singer-songwriter, was the first episode. So please, you can subscribe right on my YouTube. It's just youtube.com/Ron Placone. I uploaded all the episodes because YouTube started carrying the podcast. So please check out my podcast if you haven't yet. Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you, Nadia. Yeah. I gotcha. That. Okay. Yeah. So the word in this case was rape, mass rape, and forced birth. Yeah. I gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Sorry I didn't catch that. but thank you for the clarification. And for all the super chats. Let's see. Oh, and Travers, you asked if I'm going to I'm not going to be at the Fringe Fest this year. I plan to be back next year. I hope to go to the Edinburgh Fringe next year, but I'm not going to be there in 2024. I will have some UK announcements soon. You guys know that I'm focused on the movie this year, which there should be some announcements for Left It Wall very, very soon about how everyone will be able to see it. Our screening run has ended, but you all are going to be able to see it really soon. So I'm not going to be at the Edinburgh Fringe this year, but I should have some UK updates very, very soon. I'm finalizing all the details there. So I'm working on that, but it will not be Edinburgh, not this year. But next year, I hope to come back to Edinburgh. Guys, thank you so much for being there. Please check out my podcast. Please, if you are able, statuscoup.com/join. And this has been Ron Placone for Status Coup. Let me say thank you to all the super chatters one more time, actually, before we shout out. I always want to give them one last shout out. Fiona, thank you so much for your membership. Arlene, thank you so much. Miss Chicky 007, thank you so much. Jeremy again. Nadia, thank you very much for the thread. Always love your thoughts. Jeremy, thank you so much for gifting the membership. Nadia, thank you again. Thank you for the thread. Much appreciated. Guys, thank you so much for being part of this. So glad I could come hang out with you today. Wishing Jordan Sheraton and his family well wishes. And this is Ron Placone for Status Coup, signing out.